RevOpsAF, the only podcast for people who are RevOpsAF and want to learn all about things that are RevOps AF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Hello and welcome to RevOps AF, the podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Camela Thompson, and today I am joined by Nancy McBee. Nancy, tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, I'm Nancy McBee. I'm currently sitting in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Houston, moved to Austin for school, never left. My background is in SaaS, FinTech, HR tech, a little bit of ad tech. That's not really SaaS, but a lot of tech stuff. And it's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to be here today.
And today we're talking about a topic that I think a lot of people are probably burned out on about the time this will launch, because we're probably near end of year unless you're on a fiscal year, and then enjoy, you're still in the middle of it.
But that's always the worst, because then the calendar doesn't add up, and you constantly have to remember what quarter or year it is. It's terrible. It's the worst.
Yeah, it's true. But what I also noticed is a pattern is a lot of times operations gets pulled in to come up with their own budget planning document last minute, and we don't get a ton of context. And a lot of times what we don't know is it's because our executive isn't exactly on the same page with what finance has already proposed. How should we be doing that rigmarole instead of what I just described?
Yeah. So let me take a teeny tiny little step back and say my background is actually in finance, in strategic finance. But I'm really lucky that right now both finance and revenue operations are currently under my umbrella. So I'm the leader for both of those organizations right now, which is great. So I know they're aligned, assuming I'm aligned in my own head. But in a lot of cases, you're exactly right. That's not normally what happens. There's a different leader that runs revenue operations, and they have their own planning and cadences, and then finance has their own planning and cadences. And there's the whole dilemma of tops down, bottoms up. What do executives expect? What is the finance team forecasting? What does the street want to see? What do investors want to see, depending on the size of the company, all those kinds of things. That's the finance world. And then there's the sales leadership, bottoms up, market analysis, all the things that RevOps really runs and does. And those things don't always match. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. And we can talk through all of those and more.
So why is it a good idea if my business leader comes to me and says, I need a budget plan, for me to go straight over to finance and say, hey, I'm being asked for this? Like, why should I do that? And how should I think about communicating with finance so we can work together?
More than likely, finance already has something that they're expecting. And the reason for that is in any planning cycle. So let's pretend that our fiscal year and calendar year are the same, right? In a past life, we always started our annual budgeting in like August and September.
Yeah.
We start very early from a finance perspective. From a RevOps perspective, you might not even know what your sales productivity is in August or September when we start forecasting. So we already have a baseline of expectations that is really easy to then convert to say, is that real? Is that not real, when you do that bottoms up? So the first thing that's helpful for a RevOps organization is to go to finance to say, what are y'all even thinking is the baseline here?
Yeah, and I like to come to them with, depending on which department I'm working with. So sometimes it's a sales hiring plan, sometimes it's a marketing budget plan. But I think whether you're doing tops down or bottoms up, there are a lot of assumptions that go into models.
Yep.
And starting there is really helpful. Maybe, I think a lot of people know what tops down versus bottoms up is, but I think we should describe it for those who are unclear.
Sure. So when we think about a tops down plan, we're essentially saying, all right, do we want to be at 10% year-over-year growth? Do we want to be at 15%? Do we want to be at 30 or 50%, depending on where your business is in its life cycle and what type of growth you're trying to get to? And so you'll essentially say, I want to get to this kind of growth. How can I get there? How much new business do I need? How much expansion do I need? Do I need to upsell to my customers? What is my retention going to look like? To see, can I get to those bigger numbers, and what are the high level assumptions for GRR, for average sales price, for win rates, then I need to get there. And that's finance is going to come up with those higher level assumptions for their tops down forecast that matches the overall expectations of year-over-year growth.
Yeah.
Revenue operations is going to create something that's more bottoms up. They're going to say, if we expect to drive 500 MQLs a month, how many of those convert to SALs? And then how many of those convert to SQLs? What is the sales cycle and timeline of deal velocity for each of those? What's my win rate? What's my sales productivity? How do I make sure that those all match up? And then that gets you to a monthly or quarterly new business number that you then say, does that number match with what finance just put together? Is it higher? Is it lower? Is it about the same? They're never going to be the same, and any forecast, whether it's tops down or bottoms up, is always going to be wrong. We're just trying to get reasonable assumptions and expectations put together as an organization to drive the right behavior and alignment in our strategy over the year. That's really the whole point of planning, is additional alignment and making sure that everyone's holding hands on the strategy and targets that they want to hit.
Yeah, and I've seen a few factors widen the divide between the two different approaches and the numbers we get to. One of them is that finance has a lot of business context that we don't have.
Yep.
So, for example, if you're a private equity company, the finance team will understand the exit strategy and how things are planning to play out. So I was very fortunate to work for a private equity company that was profitable. So we had quite a bit of runway and could operate it. Yeah, it was so nice. That's not normally what private equity looks like.
We're not all so lucky all the time.
No, that's not usually what it looks like. And you're really being squeezed like lemon juice to figure out.
It's like they're flipping houses, right?
Yes. So that was a great experience. So finance has a ton of context. Operations actually has a lot of context that isn't necessarily communicated to finance. Hey, our ramp times are actually really long when we hire a salesperson because our product's complex and we don't have enablement in place. So that can really throw things off, especially the hiring schedule and when you want that to hit throughout the year. And then the other scenario, which like, has your company completely changed its business model? And then you're using a lot of theoreticals and guesses instead of Yeah, that's my favorite. No, it's not.
The true tops down, the guess.
I've been there recently,
Me too.
actually.
It's fun though. You got to put some number on the board. You got to go for so. Sometimes that's how you got to do it.
So let's use sales planning, capacity planning, and hiring model as an example. You've got a sales analyst, maybe they're a RevOps analyst, but they're specializing in this area right now, and their numbers are pretty different. How would you like them to come to you and work with you to figure out why the numbers are so different?
The first thing I would say on all of this is it doesn't matter what organization you're in or who you are, but every single person's always going to be missing some type of context. So there is definitely always a level of, I don't know if trust is the right word, but trust, respect, alignment that you have to say, I'm never going to know all the things. I need to work within the realms of what I do know and trust that everybody is also doing that and acting in everybody else's best interests. I've been at prior companies where I've been really frustrated on the financing, really frustrated about things because I didn't know all of the things that are going behind the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. And because I didn't know that, I was frustrated. But if I would have known those things, then I would have gotten it. And I guess that whole trust component is, do you trust the people that you're working with? Do you enjoy working with them? Do you believe that they're working for the best benefit of the company and employees like you and them? And then do you trust your leadership? And if those things are true, then you just have to live in a little bit of ambiguity and be okay with that. And that's everybody. That's on the finance team, that's on the sales ops team, that's on RevOps, that's on every single team. Developers building the stuff that sales is going to go sell, right? And the delivery team delivering the stuff that sales just sold, right? All of the teams have to live there. But to be more specific and answer your question instead of dodging, maybe, is one of the things that I like the most about working with people, particularly at a small company, is if somebody has a question, they can book time with somebody else. Book time, get that additional context, make sure that you're sharing and talking, and those kinds of things and problems will come out. When we're talking about the sales productivity analysis, okay, we really need somebody to have a 6-month ramp or a 3-month ramp versus a 1 month or 3 month ramp, and finance has it different in their models. Finance might come back and say, hey, yeah, I actually want to do that because I'm planning for a more stretch case, but we do have a board forecast where we actually have a longer ramp and all of these things. So even though we're starting somebody there, that's actually okay and don't worry about it. But this is more of our stretch scenario, or vice versa, right? There are a lot of different reasons why finance might be putting really aggressive assumptions or conservative assumptions in their models. And sitting down and talking to people, you can get a lot of that additional context. And if you don't, you just have to trust that your partners, that your coworkers, that your leaders are doing the right thing by the company and for the employees.
And I think a tactic that's served me really well, and you learn this over time, is to build the model so the assumptions can be changed on the fly.
Yes.
So as you discuss things, you could say, okay, if I match your lead conversion rate of 15%, we look much closer, but historically we've been at 3 to 5%. So I think 7's a better stretch, and this is how it impacts the rest of the model.
Or, hey, I talked with our sales leader and he has this new initiative that he's running that, okay, maybe it's not 15%, and historically we've been at 3, but maybe we'll plan for 10 then. And then also, then RevOps says, oh, that initiative, I'm actually working on building that right now in Salesforce. And now I have the additional context of what I'm doing there for that sales leader and the impact it's going to drive. Because at the end of the day, especially when you think about startups and smaller companies where everybody's wearing so many hats, every single thing that every single person is doing is driving so much impact, but it's so hard to see that unless you take a step back and connect all the dots. And when everybody's working like crazy hours and has crazy task lists and all of those things, it's so hard to connect those dots. So that's another context setting thing that ends up being nice, of hopping on the phone with somebody, having the conversation, connecting the dots, and then maybe there's still some questions unanswered, but you got most of your boxes checked.
Yeah. And how I've seen this play out too many times is I'm brought in, a meeting is scheduled to review the model, and I don't have time to clear it with finance first. Just tough. But I've seen it work. Like, I've made it work by coming to the table very honest about the information I don't have and where I think the model's weak. And even if I'm way off from finance, and they get a little defensive at first because I'm a consultant and they didn't know this was happening, I approach it with some humility and say, here's the information I don't have, there's a lot of context, but here's what I'm noticing in the data that I think should be factored in. Even if they're a little defensive at first, if you approach it well, they usually go away and think about it, and you meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, one of the other sayings that I told one of my favorite sales leaders that I've worked with is, if finance is a little bit uncomfortable with the ending number and sales is a little bit uncomfortable with the ending number, that usually means that's the right number. Finance and leadership want it to be higher and sales wants it to be an easier number to hit, and we're both a little bad. Okay, that's probably the right number. If everyone's happy, that ain't the right number.
Yeah. And I'm so glad we're talking through this, because I think just starting with the goal and working backwards I really feel it isn't enough. You need to have both approaches.
You really do. You really do. And you need to say, okay, where do we want to be? What's that true tops down? And what are the things that we have to execute on to get there? What things have to be true to get there? And then RevOps is going to do that bottoms up. Say, what are all the things that I know? How do I get there? And then they're going to be a little mismatched. Okay, if we execute on these things, here's that additional context of the initiatives that we're doing that we're going to go and execute on and what we're trying to drive in additional efficiencies. Does that mean the numbers match, or are we still off? Because if we're still off, that's not a recipe for success for anybody, because you don't want to set either too high or too low of numbers where the entire company's expectations are off balance as well. That's not good for anybody.
Yeah, and I see that a lot with businesses who are drastically changing what they're doing.
Yes. And some of that is because people don't know.
Yes.
Right? Like I did the guess work. Sometimes you have to make a guess and educate a guess because you don't know. You're doing something brand new. You have no idea how long it's going to take to find product market fit. You have no idea how long it's going to take to hit these milestones and see this ramp of this like 0 to 1 new product or thing, which there are so many things like that out there. And you hear these crazy stories and you're like, that could be us. And of course, it could be any company. So some of the guesses you have to do, but you never want to make such a guess that then everyone's set up to feel like they didn't win. Because at the end of the day, we're all human and we all want to win constantly. I don't want to win. I'm not even competitive, even though some people say I am, but I'm not even competitive and I want to win all the time. So
if I'm playing a game with family, I'm going to win, but not in a business
That's
setting.
the only time. I guess it depends on the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sister-in-law is really good at Jeopardy, so I know I'm going to lose on that one. And it's how it is what it is.
We all have our strengths.
We do. Not everyone has to be a Jeopardy whiz, is what I tell myself whenever I'm playing with her.
It's so true. Anyway, let's maybe talk about some of the common areas departments butt heads with finance and why that might be, just to give people some context. I've noticed that marketing teams it depends on who they're working with, but they can get extremely detailed about the different channels they're working with. Yeah. And how that works over time changes drastically depending on what's going on in the market. How does finance look at that variability, and how much detail do you really want?
I've worked with some marketing operations people that are so amazing. I'm like, how can they keep so many numbers in their head? Like, how can they do, like, how do you know all of this? And you're keeping that close, and that's what they need to do. Mm-hmm. Finance needs to know, what does that mean from a dollars perspective? Yeah. There's also that, like, weird misalignment on, like, count versus dollars. Like, finance is always going to care more about the dollar conversion rates. And marketing and sometimes sales is always going to care about the count conversion rates, right? Like, to me, if I get 50 grand, if anything, if that's one deal, that's even better for me, right? Mm-hmm. But then the 2 deals is going to make the count conversion rates look better, right? So finance is always skewing towards dollars. A lot of other folks, including marketing, normally skew towards count. That creates misalignment, and the whole channel perspective, I care about how much dollars of pipeline come out of each of those. Mm-hmm. I don't care what channel it comes from. Doesn't matter. I want closed contracts. Like, I want cold hard cash, right? And marketing can be so far up in the funnel, and all of that stuff is so important to get to that end state. But finance has so many numbers that are after getting the contract that it's so hard to do every single step and be as ingrained as marketing operations is in every single step.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that goes back to trust, right? So
yeah, it does.
If you have the suspicion that marketing's asking for a lot of budget, but doesn't really have the data to back up why they're asking for that budget, that's going to create issues. But also as a VP of marketing, as things changed in the market, I didn't always spend all of my budget because some of the more expensive tactics just weren't paying off.
And that's the best marketing leaders that I've worked with. It's been one of those trust exercises. Yeah, you can go spend X, and then that person will come back to me and be like, I can't spend it. I won't get what I need for it. And I'm like, cool, then don't. Yeah. Or you need to push some more. You want to put your foot on the pedal. Sure, let's release another. But having that trust once again across the organization of people that you know are digging into all of those things, people that you know are keeping an eye on all of that. That's what's really important. Because me as a finance leader or as a financial analyst, I'm never going to be able to hold all of those numbers in my head. I'm never going to be able to wear that many hats and do it as well as it needs to be done on both levels.
Okay.
Unless you're like a superhero freak person, but that's just not me. I'm not that smart.
I've met a few. It doesn't always translate in the business acumen, though, because those numbers are so flexible. It's just...
There's that whole thing is how do you speak high level and then constantly get in the weeds on the details?
Yeah, context switching, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I love that you touched on is there are behaviors people demonstrate to build that trustworthiness before you ever do a budget or hiring or any of those exercises. What are you looking for in leaders that makes you really trust that they know the numbers and can translate tactics into budget?
It could be a leader or an IC. Just owning, sorry, excuse my French, but owning their shit.
Yeah.
If I know their data better than they know their data, no. That's not, but if somebody knows everything that they're doing so well that I'm like, I don't even want to know, that is awesome. One, because they're teaching me something, right? They're helping me understand what they're running and how well they're running at. And then also, I know this sounds like a little silly and corny, but like taking the time with people. So once again, somebody has a question, taking the time to jump on a Zoom call and meet and talk through that context and make sure you're on the same page and work together and hold hands, right? Like, I know like we all have a million things going on and it's so hard to make the time for yet another Zoom call that we're hopping to every single day. But taking the time to do that, I think, is so important on alignment across the business, on everybody understanding what's going on, and of building that trust and credibility with other business partners and colleagues and leaders.
Yeah, I think I'll give CMOs an example. The ones I've respected the most are extremely in touch with the revenue and pipeline numbers and not just top of funnel conversion. That's less meaningful to the business. I trust
people that like whether no matter what the, and sorry I interrupt, but
no.
Like I had a CFO at a public company and she called me into her office and said, Nancy, how do I pull an invoice? And I said, you don't need to do that. I will go and do that for you. No, I just want to know how to do it so I don't have to ask anybody any single time and I can just do it myself. I have the login, I can do it myself. Okay, fine, I'll show you and then I'll go pull it and send it in your inbox so you don't actually have to do it. But like the leaders that know how to do the detailed level stuff or want to continue to do the detailed level stuff, but also can go into a board meeting, can go into a leadership meeting, can go and set the context with different departments and organizations on different initiatives. So talking high level and detailed at the same time and walking the walk, talking, wait. That ends up being, to me, the leaders that I always respected the most and who I always, you copy what flattery is the, what does the flattery say?
I can't. Mimicry is the highest form of flattery. And then it goes on to say something about mediocre is what does the mimicry. But it's fine. We only know the first part because it's a really cool saying. Sorry, I'm a nerd. I just know.
No, I don't know. I always am trying to remember. You can ask Lance. I'm constantly like saying the wrong sayings, and people are like, wrong. And I'm like,
He lives with that full time too.
anyways, we always try to do what we find to be helpful and what we find to be good. And so I've really tried to copy that same mentality in the leaders that I respected, is like people that can are happy to still do the lowest level work and then get their hands dirty, hop in the trenches with you and grab a shovel.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting in revenue operations, like ideally you're working with an executive who's super curious and makes a point to stay on top
Ideally
of it.
in any department, you're working with an executive that's very curious. Oh, what's that ego thing we were talking about earlier?
I was going to say, it's not always the case, and sometimes you have to accept when they won't eat what you spoon feed them, but still spoon feed them. It's great practice for the next person who comes in.
Everyone's always gonna run into, and it also can be like I wonder if, like, when I think about how I show up, like, I wonder if there are some days where people are like, let me walk you to that water again, Nancy. Let's see if you'll get it this time.
We all have those days. Yes. I know I have days where my clients are like, why do I pay you? And I'm like, don't worry, I'm not billing right now.
No, but yes, we all have those days. And so as long as there's a balance, it's constantly a balance and a balancing exercise of numbers and trust and curiosity and context.
I think sorry I butt in, but I think with most people as they mature in their career, they're less touchy about being challenged. And they also understand how to challenge without challenging somebody's intelligence. It's about the assumptions and the things you're seeing, not the person doing the work. So I think 100%. Once you figure that out.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I learn, and the older I get, the more I realize I know nothing. And so we should all just lean into acting like we know nothing.
It's like how we are with our parents. It's great. Turns out they did know some things from experience.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience. Where can people find you to network?
I'm on LinkedIn. I come and visit the SeekOut office in Bellevue every now and then, and that's super duper fun. Go SeekOut. I putz around Town Lake in Austin sometimes with the kiddos, go to the park. People can find me on a good walk or at the SeekOut office every now and then.
And I heard you'll have representatives at RevOpsAF.
Yes! I cannot even wait. I'm so excited. I think I'm hoping for 3 folks from SeekOut, including me. So I'm really excited.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.